I am on a mission with the podcast, guys, and I need your help. My audience across email, Instagram, LinkedIn, and the podcast is pretty sizable, but the percentage of that audience that subscribe and listen to the podcast is tiny. And I would love to reach more people with this. I keep getting great feedback from listeners about the quality of the content, the subject matter, and I feel like this is a great medium for me. I am reading an excellent business book at the moment called 10x is easier than 2x. And the key message from that book is that if you want to achieve transformational growth as a person and within your business, you need to let go of 80% of the things that are distracting you or do not tap into your best abilities. And by letting go, that doesn't mean stopping doing them altogether, but it could mean delegating them or automating them. And then focus the majority of your time on your unique abilities. And having reflected on that whilst reading the book, and having listened to the feedback that I get from regular listeners, I know that one of my special abilities is being able to articulate and share ideas around a diverse range of health topics like we cover on this podcast. I think that the podcast medium is perfect for that. I'm not a massively visual person, as you will know if you follow my Instagram content, which is pretty basic and no frills. But I do think that I'm good at sharing and explaining and simplifying ideas through the medium of the podcast. So help me to help more people. I would love to get to 1,000+ subscribers to the podcast. And that's a long way from where we are at the moment. But if every listener shared the podcast with 5 people who they think might be interested in it, or even better, shared it through their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or other channels that they are active on, then we could reach more people. I could get more subscribers and we could help more people avoid the kind of bullshit that we all know exists in the fitness industry online. Instagram accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers telling people that apple cider vinegar is the key to their fat loss, or V-Shred's multi-million-pound marketing campaign. So if I could ask one thing of you this week, guys, it would simply be to share an episode of the podcast that's really resonated with you with people who you think might be interested. And that could be sharing it through social media, or it could just be sending people a message saying, hey, this podcast is great. This guy's worth listening to. Have a listen, subscribe to the podcast. Thank you to everybody who messaged me about the TRT episode. Lots of people were telling me that I was brave and courageous in sharing my experience and my story. Didn't really feel that way to me, to be honest. I'm quite happy to be transparent and open and vulnerable. It's one of my values to make sure that I retain that authenticity no matter where my business gets to in future. And I know that I can help other people by sharing my experience. I'm really glad that people got value from that. I will, of course, come back and continue sharing my experience as I go through that journey. I have now started. I did my first injections last week on a call with my coach from the clinic I'm working with, which was a slightly surreal experience, but actually, once done, way easier than all of the pent-up nervousness beforehand. And this week, did my own self-administered injections for the first time as well, which again were fine. So it's going to take a while before I notice any effects from that. They said 12 weeks really before stabilization and feeling some reduction in symptoms, but I'm optimistic. I'm excited about what the future is going to bring and getting pain-free, getting back to doing the things that I love doing in training and in my life as well. This week, I am going to talk about the concept of free training programs and magic exercises. 2 things that come up frequently within my free course, Training with Confidence. So what people will sometimes ask me early on in the course is, when do I get my free training and diet program? Or some variation of that question. And I go to great lengths at the start of the course to explain why Training with Confidence is not 14 days of workouts, 14 days of fat loss or muscle gain. For two reasons. Firstly, it's unrealistic to promise somebody a result in 14 days in terms of fat loss or muscle gain. And secondly, because a bunch of workouts is not that helpful. Sure, it can get you motivated and you can do some exercise over the course of 2 weeks. Maybe the extra accountability helps with that and the extra structure and extra guidance. But what happens afterwards? I would much rather teach someone methods, principles, strategies, and tactics that they can apply in the context of their life so that they leave the course more knowledgeable than when they joined. And if I just give everyone a bunch of workouts and we all just go at the gym and do a bunch of workouts, they've not learned anything. They've not gained anything that's going to help them achieve the transformation they are looking for in the longer term. However, despite explaining that during the course, in the intro, some people miss it, understandably, and some people join the course with the expectation that they're going to get a free program, which I understand. But today I'm going to explain why I don't do that, and then build on that by talking about the current trend amongst the exercise-based lifting community for categorizing exercises based on their supposed effectiveness for hypertrophy. But firstly, I want to talk about why no two programs are the same and why it would be irresponsible of me to give people a free training program during Training with Confidence. Specificity is king or queen, and designing an effective training program requires knowing much more about an individual than the individual focus that I can realistically give one person in a group of 50 or more during a free course. So if you work with me, you will know that I've asked you the following questions in order to direct your training. So questions such as, what is your training and diet history? If you're starting out, then you need a different set of exercises than if you've been going to the gym for years. What are your goals and your motivations? If your goals are physique or fat loss related, that might lead to a different approach to training than if your goals are simply to maintain or improve your health. Where do you train? How often do you train? If you're even training yet. Someone who's training 2 days a week at home needs a different program to someone who's training 4 to 5 days a week in a gym. Is the primary focus fat loss, muscle gain, or something else? That will lead us to a different approach to progression. And with fat loss related goals, I might encourage somebody to do more metabolic, complex type work towards the end of their workouts. Someone with muscle gain needs just a minimum amount of cardio to maintain their health, their fitness, and they need to focus their efforts more on pushing the intensity and progression in their training. Are there mindset traps that you struggle with? Do you struggle with perfectionism or procrastination or all or nothing thinking or anxiety or nervousness around training? Or do you enjoy training? And the reason that's important is if somebody feels anxious about training or they struggle with procrastination, then simplifying what they're doing in their workouts is a powerful way to drive them to be more consistent. If somebody doesn't struggle with any of that, they're a self-starter, they're motivated, we can introduce more complexity in the training, maybe different rep ranges, a more diverse range of exercises, and so on. What's your injury history? It's absolutely imperative to know whether somebody has struggled with injuries in the past in order to design them an effective training program. If someone's got a history of lower back pain, I'm not going to have them doing barbell squats and deadlifts multiple times a week. If someone is injury free and they've never struggled with any injuries, then maybe we can push them with some of those heavier barbell compound movements. What do you do for work? If you are in a very active job where you're moving around or you're doing a lot of heavy lifting in your job, that's going to dictate somewhat how we approach your training program compared to somebody who sits at a desk all day. Somebody who sits at a desk all day is likely to have potential postural issues that might impact on their ability to do certain movements, particularly overhead movements. And it's important to factor that in to how we approach the training. And then knowledge. How much do you know about training? There's no point in me telling somebody who's never trained before to do drop sets or reverse pyramid training. I would much rather simplify that and say, just do straight sets, push each set hard, and aim to increase the reps and increase the weight over time using a double progression model. If someone knows loads about training, we can use things like drop sets, rest pause, reverse pyramid, all these other fun ways of training and approaching progression that just would not make sense to apply to someone at the start of their journey. And also, what have you tried before? This gives clues to what works for somebody and what might not work for somebody, and what somebody enjoys or maybe doesn't enjoy. And remember, it's not all about the science. Coaching and training is both an art and a science, and this is where the art comes in. Adherence, enjoyment is a big factor in helping somebody stay consistent. And if someone tells me they have tried HIIT before and they hated it, and then I go and give them a bunch of HIIT workouts to do, that's not going to be very helpful. That is just a flavour of the questions that I explore with somebody when they onboard into the Mind and Matter method. And hopefully it shows you why throwing out a blanket workout plan, telling everyone to do these exercises on these days with this equipment is not going to work. And this is exactly why that random Tom Holland men's health workout plan is not going to turn you into jacked Spider-Man. The best plan for you is one that has been designed for you. And putting that plan together means knowing much more about you than I can possibly know about someone when I've been chatting to them via DMs on WhatsApp. That takes time, effort, energy, and focus. And sometimes I'll explain to guys who ask me this question during training with confidence that for me to give them a program at this point would be irresponsible. And that can sound dramatic. Sometimes people seem a little bit taken aback by that. Well, I can get a free program anywhere. How is it irresponsible? If I work with you, whether I work with you just in the free course or I work with you more closely as a client, I'm serious about your results and your progress. And I'm not going to risk that by people pleasing you with a random assortment of exercises during the free course just because that's what you've come into the course expecting. And to be fair, most of the time people get it. People say, cool, well, I'm going to go through the course, and if I enjoy it, then I know there is going to be a point where you talk more about your paid program, and I'll be interested and I'll listen to what you have to say. But occasionally, me explaining that will put someone off and they'll withdraw from the course. And again, that's totally fine. I'm not here to please everybody just because that's what they think they need. And they can go and find their free training program wherever. It's not going to be the answer they're looking for, because the reason most people have failed with free programs is because it has not factored in the kinds of questions and considerations that I've just covered. And all of that is also true for a nutrition protocol. Let's not call it a diet plan. I don't give people diet plans, but we do, in the context of a program, cover both training and nutrition. So similar sorts of questions that I posed for someone's training history and goals and motivations and context and environment and injury history and everything else apply to nutrition. What's your history of dieting? What's worked and what hasn't? How much do you know about nutrition? Do you have any dietary requirements? What's the goal? What motivates you? Mindset traps. Those same things apply as much for nutrition as they do for training. And that is why I can't give everybody a free nutrition plan or nutrition protocol during training with confidence. For example, there is a learning curve associated with learning how to track your diet in the flexible and sustainable way that we do within the Mind and Matter method. And people come to me with vastly different knowledge of nutrition. Some people come to me and they have been tracking their diet for years using apps I've never even heard of. and they know about calories, they know about protein, they know about fiber, carbs, fats, and so on. Other people will come to me and they don't really know what a calorie is. So giving everybody the same blanket recommendations in a free course is not going to work. It needs to be tailored to the individual's level of knowledge and experience. Learning how to manage calories is a fundamental, foundational skill that I teach people within the mobilization phase of the Mind and Matter method. But many people are already there. So we only focus on that if it's something that people are unaware of or need to focus on. Same with getting enough protein. Some people come into the program and they're already eating 140, 160 grams of protein a day. Occasionally they're eating way too much protein. Some people are eating 50 grams of protein a day. And this is why I can't give everyone a blanket recommendation of you must get 140 grams of protein a day. It doesn't make sense for me to tell someone who's getting 50 grams of protein a day that they suddenly need to triple it. What's more effective is showing them how they can get from 50 grams to 80 grams a day and normalizing that in their diet. Then when they're getting 80 grams a day, pushing it a bit further. Okay, can we get over 100 grams a day? And that for me is the minimum baseline that I try to normalize for everyone, 100 grams or more of protein a day. Dietary requirements also play into that. So someone who's vegan especially, but also vegetarian in some cases, can struggle to get enough protein, to get more than 100 grams a day, in the context of also trying to manage their calories and everything else. So we need to factor that in. We need to factor in their experience with diets. Maybe some things have worked for them. Maybe intermittent fasting has worked for them. That's a common one. Maybe some things have definitely not worked for them, like keto, again, a common one. This leaves clues, just like with the training, for what might work and what might not work for them from this point. Goals and motivations also play a part here. If someone is highly motivated to achieve a remarkable and transformative result in a short period of time, maybe for a wedding, a holiday, a reunion, or something else, then they are likely to be willing to make more sacrifices than somebody who is just looking for a long-term sustainable lifestyle change. And therefore, we might be way more aggressive with how we approach the nutrition compared to someone who's just looking for gradual, unsexy, long-term transformation. And life constraints. Somebody who's on the road a lot is going to need to approach their diet and their nutritional protocol differently to someone who's in complete control of their meals because they work at home all week, they're confident in the kitchen, they love doing meal prep. So all of these factors, again, play a part in determining how we approach the nutrition. And hopefully, again, this illustrates why I don't just give everybody the same generic blanket recommendation within Training with Confidence. But what I do provide in the course is the methods and the principles that we use within the full program that are proven to work and that people can tailor and apply and implement in the context of their life, along with daily actions that bring that to life and allow someone to start making progress. And in future, when this comes up, I can now share this podcast episode with anyone who asks so that I can give them a thorough explanation as to why I do not do that within the free course. Let's build on those concepts now, and let's talk about the current trend amongst the exercise science lifting community for categorizing exercises for hypertrophy based on tiers. So typically what you'll see is a list from S tier to A, B, C, D, maybe E. And the idea is that objectively, all exercises can be categorized from the best through to the worst across 4, 5, or 6 categories based on their effectiveness for hypertrophy. And that's going to be based on various factors such as ability to produce force, range of motion, stability, amount of stretch in the exercise for the target muscle group, and on and on. This is very common at the moment amongst guys like Milo Wolf, Mike Israetel, influencers, the more famous people within the science bro lifting community. And the reason I want to cover this now is because it builds on the idea that specificity is king, that there is no magical set of workouts or exercises that are categorically best for everybody. Alex Blennis did a great Instagram post on this, which I will link in the show notes. He had found a list like this for leg exercises online, which had walking lunges as a D tier exercise, which he took great umbrage with as a huge fan of walking lunges. And as a fan of various lunging movements myself, I also dispute that claim. My clients will probably categorize reverse lunges or forward lunges as a D tier exercise because they tend to hate it, even though many of them accept that they need to be doing them. But I'm just going to quote Alex Blennis here in his post. He has said that the entire concept of tiered list for exercise selection probably does more harm than good, and it's part of what leads people to resent science-based training in the first place. It's so easy to poke holes in them that you end up just looking dumb, and people discredit all of the science you talked about to arrive at your ridiculous conclusions. Science has a place in training, but using it to call pendulum squats a C-tier quad exercise just reinforces people's belief that nerds don't know what they're talking about. Stop it, please. He then had an image of S tier down to E tier, and this is what he said. The existence of S tier implies that a certain level of exercise optimization can be attained and is practically significant. However, the maximum rate of muscle protein synthesis in response to training likely reaches a ceiling before every individual's variable has been maximized. S tier exercises are illusory, as once an exercise is good enough, further optimization of one variable always comes at the expense of another. For A tier, he has said that the vast majority of all gym exercises are A tier if performed with high effort and reasonable range of motion. Then at E tier, we've got any exercise, no matter how biomechanically correct or popular, if only performed to momentary discomfort. The takeaway from Alex's post here is that the implication that you can categorize for 4, 5, or 6 different levels of exercise for hypertrophy is nonsensical because there is no meaningful difference between what might be considered a B, A, or S tier exercise. And the second takeaway from Alex's post is that the exercises that you use matters far less than the number one variable that's going to set you apart: intensity of effort. If I took Milo Wolf's list of tiered back exercises and I had one guy performing the D tier exercises but pushing every set to failure or close to failure, and another guy taking the S tier exercises but performing them to 8 reps in reserve, then the guy who's using the less good exercises, in inverted commas, is going to make way better progress than the guy who's using the supposed elite level exercises. Intensity and hard work requires far more than which variation of bicep, back, quad exercise you use. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything Alex said. I do think that people can have their own S tier or top tier exercises for them. And that's good. But what I disagree with is that there is a blanket categorization for everybody because of the questions that I posed when I was talking about training programs. Those same questions apply here to exercise selection. So I would like to propose a new approach. How about top tier exercises, which are the exercises that work best for you? Middle tier exercises, which are those that still work but you don't love, or exercises that you have never tried. And within the middle tier, we've got basically 95% of recognized resistance training exercises that you could perform in the gym. Or bottom tier exercises that are those you are not capable of because of biomechanics, injury history, strength, or practicality. And then below that, you've got the bin. And within the bin, we've got all of the exercises that anyone worth their salt will agree are suboptimal for hypertrophy and strength because they violate the principles of what drives adaptation. So if you have ever seen somebody in the gym and they've got a pair of dumbbells and their arms are bent at 90 degrees and the dumbbells are at their sides and then they're rotating them out, that is a bullshit exercise. What they think they are doing there is warming up or strengthening their rotator cuff muscles, which are the small stabilizing muscles within the shoulder. But what they are forgetting is that gravity goes down. So they are applying force horizontally by moving the dumbbell out, but the force of the dumbbell goes vertically. That exercise does nothing. Similarly, maybe you have seen somebody in the gym doing side bends for the obliques, but they've got a dumbbell in each hand. So if somebody's got a dumbbell in each hand, they're counterbalancing the resistance, which means that they're not able to generate any force against the resistance with their body. They are not doing what they think they are doing. A couple more examples. Bosu ball squats, where somebody puts a Bosu ball upside down and then does a wobbly squat on top of it. Might be good for improving balance and stability, for sure. Not very good for hypertrophy because you cannot apply enough mechanical tension and force against the resistance due to the lack of stability. And that goes for any sort of wobbly stability exercise. Good for some purposes, not good for gaining muscle and strength. And then things like tricep kickbacks, where you've got a really limited range of motion and or you're not actually applying force against gravity. So tricep kickback, where somebody's just pushing a dumbbell back, thinking they're working their tricep, but again, not applying force against gravity. Or any exercise that you see people performing in the gym and you think, I've not seen that one before. What are they doing? But not only what are they doing, because some people might perform innovative or unique exercises that could be helpful. But if you can't identify what muscle group is being worked, then likelihood is that is an exercise that might belong in the bin. So that's my take on this, that we can categorize exercises, but it's much simpler than S, A, B, C, D, maybe E. We can categorize them as your favorite exercises, top tier, the vast majority of exercises, middle tier, or exercises you can't perform, bottom tier, and then we disregard the bullshit ones and put them in the bin. So what could make an exercise top tier for you? There's a range of different factors. Firstly, enjoyment. If you really enjoy doing a bench press or a leg press or a cable fly, you're going to put more effort into it and you're going to get better gains from it. Now, that doesn't mean that your program should only be made up of exercises you enjoy. That is what leads to men training only their upper body or women training only their glutes and quads. But what it does mean is that enjoyment is a practical way to motivate you and allow you to apply more effort in the gym. Sometimes you will need to do things you don't enjoy. Many of my clients do not enjoy doing lunges, but they accept that they need to do them. So my job as a coach is not just to give people a bunch of exercises they enjoy, but to give them what I think they need. And that will include a combination of exercises they enjoy to boost motivation and adherence, but also things that I think they need that they just need to accept are going to suck a little bit. Secondly, ability to perform through a full range of motion pain-free. So this is where injury history comes in. This is where biomechanics come in some cases. Ability to push with complete intensity without sacrificing form, because stability is important, but sometimes people are just going to click better with certain exercises than others. I've always hated barbell bent over rows because I've never been able to get stronger at them without sacrificing form. I end up hiking my hips and using a lot of momentum. Other people might get good results from that exercise. I much prefer a chest supported row or a seal row where I've got more stability and I can perform the exercise and really focus on the mind muscle connection with my back. Speaking of which, being able to feel some stimulus in the target muscle groups. Now that could be mind muscle connection, it could be pump, or it could be delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS. Now we don't chase soreness, we don't chase DOMS. That's not a driver of hypertrophy, but a bit of DOMS the day after you've performed a workout is a great sign that you've suitably stimulated the target muscle group. And if you never get DOMS after certain exercises, that's a sign that maybe your technique is subpar, or maybe it's just not a great exercise for you. ability to suitably apply force and progressive overload. If you're able to produce force and maximize mechanical tension, and you're able to add reps and weight over time, then that is a great exercise for you. Minimizing injury risk, especially in cases where someone's had a previous injury. If you come to me and you tell me, I've got a history of rotator cuff and shoulder impingement problems, I'm not going to have you doing bench pressing multiple times a week. We might use a dumbbell bench press, and I might encourage you to play around with the grip position so that you're able to change the position of your shoulder to something that you can perform pain-free. We might use more chest isolation exercises in place of big compound movements to allow you to train pain-free and to avoid re-aggravating old injuries. Context and practicality. So it might be true that for hypertrophy, more stable, single limb isolation exercises might be best. But if you only have 45 minutes to train, I'd much rather that you were doing a back squat or a reverse lunge or a leg press than just leg extensions, hip abductions and sissy squats, because they are going to deliver more benefit to more of your muscularity and they're going to allow you to get stronger. And the other aspect of context and practicality is where you train. If the S tier list is all cable exercises, but you train at a pure gym at peak time, that's not very helpful, because there are groups of bros using those machines non-stop from 5 till 7 p.m. As I understand it, I've never actually been in a pure gym. If you train at home, me giving you a bunch of machine exercises and saying they're your S tier list, again, is not helpful. And more now, people are building home gyms. People are finding ways to get a great training stimulus with a limited amount of equipment. They love the convenience of not having to go to a gym. Or the flip side, maybe they do love the convenience of going to a gym and not needing to worry about having equipment at home. But there's no one size fits all here, and people have a diverse range of requirements. So hopefully that shows you that, again, just like with the training program and the nutrition protocol, everybody's top tier exercise list is going to be different. And the last thing I want to say is that your top tier list is not set in stone. It can evolve over time. As you introduce new exercises, maybe they become top tier. Maybe you get injured, unfortunately, and therefore an exercise that used to be top tier might move down. And again, this is why specificity is so key to your programming and your results. My top tier list is going to be different to yours. As a 67 kilogram man, pull-ups for me are a top tier exercise for my back. I absolutely love doing them. I love getting stronger at them. I'll do them 2 or 3 times a week. But I don't give them to my clients who are 100 kilograms or more and they've never been able to perform a full pull-up. That's not a top tier exercise for them. Gym confidence and gym experience plays a factor as well. So machines versus free weights. When somebody comes to me and they've got gym anxiety or they're inexperienced with training, I love starting them off on a program that's mainly machine based, and my flagship program for that is the Gym Confidence program. And then gradually over time, as they make progress, we start to introduce more free weights, and we start by introducing isolation exercises for free weights that are a bit simpler to perform, like maybe some Y raises, some skull crushers, some bicep curls. But then over time, I'll start introducing maybe some barbell stuff. And I've got clients who started off with a lack of confidence in the gym, and now a year on, they're doing reverse lunges with a barbell and telling me, I can't believe that I'm doing these exercises that I used to see people doing in the gym, and I used to think, I'm never going to be able to do that. That's intimidating. Now they're critiquing other people's form in the gym because they've gradually built that gym confidence. So if somebody comes to me and they feel self-conscious in the gym, I'm not going to have them doing Bulgarian split squats on the Smith machine to 1 rep in reserve. I'm going to have them doing leg extensions or leg press. But if somebody comes to me and they tell me they love pushing hard and they want to be challenged, then we might do some Smith machine Bulgarian split squats. Leg press, squats, deadlifts, they can all be a top tier exercise for somebody and a bottom tier exercise for somebody else. Barbell bench press, dumbbell bench press, again, the same is true. depending on your injury history, depending on your biomechanics. And above all else, irrespective of how you categorize and tier your exercises, how hard you work matters much more than which exercises you perform, assuming that we're putting a bunch of suboptimal exercises in the bin and we can all agree on which those are. Any exercise will become bottom tier if you don't push it close enough to failure with good form, like I talked about in episode 7 of the podcast. So, this has been quite a long way of answering the question, when can I expect my free training program and diet plan? But hopefully I've shown you why a list of exercises is not the answer you are looking for. How you perform your exercises is much more important than specifically which exercises you do. Nearly all exercises can be top tier, but what's top tier for you is not the same as what might be top tier for somebody else. Your list of best exercises is going to be different to anyone else's. And that is exactly why it takes more knowledge and understanding of you as a person, your goals, your motivations, your history, your environment, your constraints, and everything else to design you the best possible training program. And that's why I don't just dish out a free program for everybody within Training with Confidence. Remember, guys, my request of you this week is to share this episode or another episode that you've really enjoyed with people that you know, either on social media, or drop a few friends a message and say, hey, this episode of the podcast was really good. This guy, Toby, is an absolute legend. You can use your own words if you don't agree with that. And help us to reach more people with quality, evidence-based content around training, nutrition, habits, health, mindset, emotional health, mental health, and everything else that goes into you living your happiest, healthiest, and most fulfilling life. I will see you next week. Have a good one, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Real quick request, guys. If you want to help more people to live happy and healthy lives, here is an easy way you can do that. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, consider leaving a review, and share it with someone who you think would benefit. As I'm sure you know, there is a lot of bullshit in the fitness industry, and these small actions will help more people avoid wasting their time and energy on stuff that doesn't work. If you are ready to make a positive change to your life, I run a free 14-day course on a regular basis called Training with Confidence, where I'll give you an overview of the training, nutrition, and mindset principles that you can use to get into the shape of your life. All you need is to give me 10 minutes per day. And if you are ready to invest in yourself and transform your body and your mind, then you should check out my coaching program, the Mind and Matter Method, and join the community of people like you who are nailing their training and nutrition, getting into great shape, supporting each other, and loving the process along the way. The link for both of those are in the show notes. If you are a client, you're awesome. Thank you for your support. If you have questions or feedback, you can email me at toby@mindandmatterfitness.co.uk. So until next time, happy training.